Have you ever wondered what it feels like to watch your entire world shatter with the sound of a single heartbeat? I found out on a Tuesday morning in October, when a boy with haunted green eyes walked into my chemistry class, wearing the one thing I thought was buried forever, my sister's silver locket, the same one she clutched to her chest as she whispered her final secret to me the night before she vanished. But this isn't just a story about a missing girl and a piece of jewelry. This is a story about the lies we tell ourselves to survive, the love that transcends death, and the devastating truth that sometimes the monsters we're running from are the very people sworn to protect us. My name is Lily Parker, and what I'm about to tell you will change everything you think you know about trust, family, and the price of seeking justice in a world built on secrets. Millbrook, Connecticut. Population 8,000. The kind of place where everyone knows your business before you do. Where the biggest scandal in recent memory was Mrs. Henley getting caught kissing the UPS driver behind the Methodist church. We were the poster child for small-town America. White picket fences, Friday night football games, and the unshakable belief that bad things happened to other people in other places. Until the night my sister Claire disappeared and took our innocence with her. I was 14 then, a freshman drowning in algebra homework and unrequited crushes, watching my 18-year-old sister navigate senior year like she owned the world. Claire wasn't just beautiful, though she was. With her cascade of golden hair and eyes the color of summer storms. She had this light inside her, this magnetic energy that drew people in like moths to a flame. But what I remember most about my sister wasn't her beauty or her popularity. It was the way she looked at me like I was the most important person in her universe, even when I was just her awkward little sister with braces and two big dreams. "You're going to change the world someday, Lily," she told me the night before she disappeared, her fingers playing with that silver locket she never took off. "Promise me you'll never let anyone convince you to be smaller than you are." Those were the last words she ever said to me. By morning, she was gone. The official story was simple, clinical, sanitized for public consumption. Claire Parker, 18, honor student and homecoming queen, had left a party around 11 p.m. on October 15th. Her car was found the next morning by Miller's Creek. Keys in the ignition, purse untouched, driver's door hanging open like she'd simply vanished into thin air. "Probably fell in the water," Detective Morrison had said, his voice heavy with practiced sympathy. "These old creek beds are deceptive." Currents strong after a rain, and it was a dark night. But I knew something the police didn't know. Something I'd never told anyone because I was 14 and scared, and who would believe me anyway? Claire hadn't gone to that party willingly. She'd been terrified. The afternoon before she disappeared, I'd found Claire sitting on her bedroom floor, surrounded by crumpled tissues and wearing an expression I'd never seen before. Raw, primal fear. "Lily," she'd whispered when she saw me in the doorway, "close the door. We need to talk." I'd sat beside her on the carpet, my heart hammering, because Claire was the brave one, the fearless one, the sister who'd once chased off 3 older boys who were bullying me with nothing but righteous fury and a field hockey stick. "Someone's been watching me," she'd said, her voice so quiet I had to lean in to hear her. "Following me. I think someone wants to hurt me." "Who?" I demanded, ready to fight whoever was threatening my sister. I don't know for sure, but Lily, and if something happens to me, nothing's going to happen to you. Listen to me. She'd grabbed my hands, her fingers ice cold despite the warm October afternoon. If something happens, I need you to remember this. The truth isn't always what it seems. Sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones you need protection from. She'd made me promise to remember those words, made me swear I wouldn't tell anyone about our conversation. Then she'd given me her most treasured possession, a photo of our grandmother tucked inside that silver locket. "Keep this safe for me," she'd said, pressing it into my palm. "And if you ever see it again, if someone else has it, you'll know they were there that night." I tried to give it back, told her she was scaring me, begged her not to go to the party, but Claire had smiled that sad, beautiful smile and kissed my forehead. "I have to go, Lily, so if I don't show up, people will ask questions. And right now, questions are dangerous." The next morning, she was gone, and for 5 years, I'd kept her secret, buried it so deep I'd almost convinced myself it had been a nightmare. Until the day Ethan Cross walked into my life wearing Claire's locket, and everything I thought I knew about my sister's disappearance crumbled like sand. The first thing you need to understand about Ethan Cross is that he didn't just walk into Millbrook High School. He materialized like a dark prince from some gothic romance novel, all sharp cheekbones and mysterious silences. But it was his eyes that haunted me, those deep green pools that seemed to hold the weight of unspeakable secrets. The second thing you need to understand is that the moment I saw that locket around his neck, I knew my sister was dead. Not missing, not lost, dead. And because Claire would have fought to the death before letting anyone take that locket from her, which meant whoever had it now had taken it from her lifeless body. "Lily Parker?" "Mr. Peterson's voice cut through my shock. "Would you mind showing our new student around?" I nodded mechanically, my eyes fixed on that flash of silver at Ethan's throat. It was definitely Claire's locket. Same intricate rose pattern. Same tiny dent from when she dropped it down the stairs at age 12. Same delicate chain that had rested against her collarbone for 4 years. "Of course," I managed, my voice sounding strange to my own ears, and as we walked through the hallways, I found myself studying Ethan with the intensity of a detective. He was tall, probably 6'2", with the kind of lean build that suggested he'd grown up fast and hard. His dark hair was slightly too long, curling around his ears in a way that made him look younger than his obvious 17 or 18 years. But it was the way he moved that caught my attention. Careful, controlled, like someone who'd learned early that the world was full of threats. "You're staring," he said quietly as we reached the English classroom. Heat flooded my cheeks. "Sorry, That's a beautiful locket." The effect of my words was immediate and startling. Ethan went very still, his hand moving instinctively to his throat. For just a moment, I saw something flicker across his features. Pain, guilt, something that looked almost like grief. "Thank you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Belonged to someone special." Past tense. Belonged. The word hit me like a physical blow. "Someone you lost?" I pressed, needing to know, needing confirmation of what my heart already understood. He turned to look at me then. Those green eyes searching my face with an intensity that made my breath catch. You could say that. And then he walked into the classroom, leaving me standing in the hallway with the devastating certainty that my sister was never coming home. I couldn't eat lunch, couldn't concentrate in afternoon classes. Every time I looked at Ethan, I saw that locket, and every time I saw that locket, I heard Claire's voice from 5 years ago. If you ever see it again, if someone else has it, you'll know they were there that night. By the time the final bell rang, I'd made a decision that would either get me answers or get me killed. Probably both. I found Ethan in the student parking lot, leaning against a black motorcycle that looked as dangerous and out of place as he did. He was reading a worn paperback, Crime and Punishment, I noticed, completely absorbed in Dostoevsky's words. Ethan. My voice came out smaller than I'd intended. He looked up, marking his place with a finger. Lily. That locket, I said, cutting straight to the heart of it because I couldn't bear another moment of uncertainty. Where did you get it? The book snapped shut in his hands. Why do you want to know? Because it belonged to my sister. And the words tumbled out in a rush. Claire Parker. She disappeared 5 years ago, and that locket was the only thing the police never found. For a long moment, Ethan just stared at me. Then, slowly, he straightened up from his casual lean against the motorcycle. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. Claire Parker, he repeated, like her name was a prayer. You knew her? Hope and terror warred in my chest. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached up and slowly pulled the locket from beneath his shirt, holding it in his palm like it might shatter. And in the afternoon sunlight, I could see every beloved detail. The intricate roses our grandmother had chosen, the tiny scratches from years of wear, the dent that marked it as unmistakably Claire's. Yes, he said finally. I knew her. How? Where? Is she? I couldn't finish the question. Couldn't voice the hope that maybe, somehow, my sister was still alive. She's dead, Lily. And the words hit me like a physical blow, even though I'd already known. Claire's been dead for 5 years. I felt my knees buckle, and suddenly Ethan was there, his hands steady on my shoulders, keeping me upright. How do you know? I whispered. Because, he said, his green eyes holding mine with devastating honesty. I was there the night she died. The world tilted sideways. Everything I thought I knew, everything I'd believed for 5 years, suddenly seemed as fragile as spun glass. You were there? I managed to choke out. Not by choice, Ethan said quickly, seeing the fear in my eyes. God, Lily, not by choice. I tried to save her. I tried, but I was just a kid, and I was too late. I don't understand. He glanced around the parking lot, noting the few remaining students and the fact that we were having this conversation in broad daylight. Not here, he said. This isn't. We can't do this here. Then where? There's a place, Schultron elevator on Riverside Road. Do you know it? I nodded numbly. Meet me there at 8 tonight, Lily? His grip on my shoulders tightened. Don't tell anyone about this conversation. Don't tell anyone you're meeting me. Your life might depend on it. My life? What are you talking about? But he was already turning away, climbing onto his motorcycle with fluid grace. 8 o'clock, he called over the engine's roar. And Lily, bring that photo. What photo? I called back, but he was already pulling out of the parking lot, leaving me standing alone with 1,000 questions and the terrible certainty that my world was about to change forever. It wasn't until I was driving home that I realized what photo he meant. The one Claire had given me the night before she disappeared, the one tucked inside the locket I now knew she'd died wearing, the one that might be the key to understanding what really happened that October night 5 years ago. The hours between school and 8 o'clock stretched like an eternity. I tried to do homework, tried to eat dinner, tried to pretend that everything was normal while my mind raced with possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. Who was Ethan Cross? How had he known Claire? And if he'd been there the night she died, why had he waited 5 years to tell anyone? At 7:30, I made an excuse to my mother about studying at the library and climbed into my ancient Honda Civic. My hands were shaking as I turned the key, and I had to force myself to drive the speed limit instead of racing toward answers that might destroy what little peace I'd managed to build. The grain elevator had been abandoned for as long as I could remember, a towering concrete monument to Millbrook's agricultural past. I parked behind it, hidden from the road, and waited. Ethan ascended exactly at 8, his motorcycle barely making a whisper as he pulled up beside my car. So say. In the dying light, he looked even more mysterious, all shadows and sharp angles. You came, he said, pulling off his helmet. Did you think I wouldn't? I hoped you would, but I also hoped you'd be smart enough to stay away. Why? Are you dangerous? He was quiet for a long moment, studying my face in the twilight. Not to you, he said finally. Never to you, but the truth about what happened to Claire. That's dangerous, both of us. I need to know. No, you do. He sat down on an old concrete barrier, gesturing for me to join him. But before I tell you, I need you to understand something. Once you know what really happened that night, you can't unknow it. And it's going to change everything you believe about your sister, about your town, about people you've trusted your whole life. I don't care. You will. His voice was heavy with a sadness that seemed too old for his face. But you deserve the truth. Claire would have wanted you to know the truth. He pulled the locket from his shirt again, holding it up so the last rays of sunlight caught the silver. I met your sister 3 weeks before she died, he began. But not here in Millbrook, us in Hartford, and at a group home for kids aging out of the foster system. Group home? I interrupted. Claire was never in a group home. No, but I was, and she was volunteering there. Part of some community service program from your school. She was reading to the younger kids, helping with homework. Just being Claire. The way he said her name, with such gentle reverence, made my chest tight. You were in foster care? Since I was 12, my parents died in a car accident, and I had no other family. Bounced around homes for 6 years until I aged out. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Your sister was the first person in a long time who looked at me like I was worth something. That sounds like Claire. She was extraordinary, he said softly. Beautiful, yes. But more than that, she had this way of seeing the best in everyone, of making you believe you could be better than you were. What happened between you two? We talked. Every Thursday afternoon for 3 weeks, we talked. About books, about dreams, about the future. She told me about wanting to study social work in college, about how she wanted to help kids like me, and I fell in love with her. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with old pain. Did she know? I think so. The last time I saw her, she gave me this locket, said she wanted me to have something to remember her by, that she hoped we'd find each other again after she graduated. But you didn't see her again. Not alive, no. His voice broke slightly on the words. 3 days later, I got a call. Not from Claire, but from someone claiming to be her, saying she was in trouble, that she needed my help, that I should meet her at Miller's Creek at midnight. My blood ran cold. But it wasn't her. No, it was a trap. I walked right into it. Who was it? Ethan was quiet for so long I thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Detective Morrison's son, Jake. The name hit me like a physical blow. Jake Morrison, the golden boy of Millbrook High. The police chief's son who'd been 2 years ahead of Claire in school. The same Jake Morrison who'd been at the party the night she disappeared. Who'd been one of the last people to see her alive. Jake Morrison killed my sister? Not alone, Ethan said, his jaw tight with suppressed rage. His father was there too. Detective Morrison, the man your family trusted to find Claire, was the one who murdered her. The world tilted again, reality reshaping itself around this impossible truth. That's insane. Why would they? Because your sister discovered something she wasn't supposed to know. So something that could have destroyed both their lives and... What? Ethan reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila envelope, worn and creased like it had been handled many times. Before I show you what's in here, he said, I need you to understand that what you're about to see will haunt you for the rest of your life. Are you sure you want to know? I thought about Claire's last words to me, about the fear in her eyes, about 5 years of wondering and hoping and grieving. Yes, he handed me the envelope with hands that weren't quite steady. I've been carrying this for 5 years, waiting for the right time to bring it to light, waiting for someone who would believe me. Inside the envelope were photographs, dozens of them. Some clear, some grainy, all of them devastating. Photos of young women, teenagers mostly, in various states of distress. Some were clearly surveillance shots, taken without the subject's knowledge. Others were more intimate, more violent. And there, in the middle of the stack, was Claire. Oh God, I whispered, my hands shaking as I stared at the image of my sister. She was tied to a chair in what looked like a basement, terror written across her beautiful face. They weren't just killing girls, Ethan said quietly. They were trafficking them, taking young women from small towns, selling them to the highest bidder. Claire stumbled across their operation by accident. How? She was tutoring Jake's younger cousin, helping her with college applications. The girl mentioned that her brother Jake had offered to help her find a modeling agency in New York, said he had connections who could make her famous. I felt sick. But Claire figured out what was really going on. She started asking questions, doing research, found other girls who'd gone missing after talking to Jake about modeling opportunities. She was going to go to the police, but the police were in on it. Detective Morrison was running the whole operation, using his position to cover up the disappearances, to throw investigations off track. Jake was his recruiter, finding vulnerable girls and luring them in with promises of modeling contracts or college scholarships. I stared at the photos until I couldn't look anymore, then set them aside with shaking hands. You said you were there the night she died. How? They used me as bait, Ethan said, his voice thick with guilt. Called me pretending to be Claire. Said she was in trouble and needed help. When I got to Miller's Creek, they were waiting, Morrison and Jake, and Claire. She was already dying when I got there. They'd hurt her and trying to get information about what she knew, who she'd told. When they realized she hadn't told anyone except me, they decided to tie up loose ends. But you escaped. Barely. Morrison shot me, left me for dead in the creek. I would have died if not for a homeless man who found me the next morning and got me to a hospital. I looked at him more carefully then, noting the way he favored his left shoulder, the faint scar visible along his hairline. You've been living with this for 5 years. Hiding from it for 5 years, Morrison had connections everywhere. And I was just a foster kid with no family, no resources. Who was going to believe me over a decorated police detective? But now you're here. Why now? Because Morrison retired last year, moved to Florida, started a new life with his share of the profits from 5 years of trafficking, and because, he hesitated, then met my eyes, because I made a promise to your sister before she died. What kind of promise? She made me swear that if I survived, I'd find you. I'd tell you the truth about what happened to her. She said you deserved to know, that you were strong enough to handle it. Tears were streaming down my face now, and I didn't try to stop them. She was thinking about me even while she was dying. She loved you more than anything in the world. Lily, her last words were about you. What did she say? She said, "Tell Lily I kept my promise. Tell her she's braver than she knows, and tell her that love doesn't end with death." I broke then. 5 years of grief and anger and unanswered questions pouring out in great, heaving sobs. Ethan didn't try to comfort me with empty words. He just sat beside me in the gathering darkness and let me mourn my sister properly for the first time. When I finally composed myself, I looked at him through swollen eyes. What do we do now? Now we make them pay for what they did to her. How? I asked, wiping my face with the sleeve of my jacket. Morrison's in Florida. Jake's probably long gone, and it's been 5 years. What evidence could possibly still exist? More than you might think, Ethan said. These men were arrogant, sloppy. They thought they were untouchable because of Morrison's position. They kept records, photos, even video documentation of their crimes. Where? That's what I've been trying to figure out for the past 2 years. But I think I know now. He pulled out his phone and showed me a series of photographs taken with a telephoto lens. Morrison's old house, the one he lived in when Claire was killed. He sold it when he moved to Florida, but the new owners have been renovating, found a hidden room in the basement, contacted the police about some disturbing items they discovered. What kind of items? The kind that suggest Morrison kept trophies from his victims. Personal belongings, jewelry, photographs. His voice got quieter. The local police are treating it as a potential crime scene, but they're moving slowly. Bureaucracy, paperwork, jurisdiction issues. Meanwhile, Morrison's living free in Florida. For now, but if we could get our hands on whatever's in that room. You're talking about breaking into a crime scene. I'm talking about making sure justice is served for your sister and all the other girls Morrison and his son killed. I stared at the photos on his phone, my mind racing. Everything logical told me this was insane, that we should turn what we knew over to the proper authorities and let them handle it. But the proper authorities had failed Claire 5 years ago. They'd trusted Morrison, believed his lies, let him cover up his own crimes. When? I heard myself ask. Tomorrow night. The new owners are staying at a hotel while the investigation is ongoing, and the police only have one officer doing periodic checks. And if we get caught? Then we get caught trying to find justice for the girls Morrison murdered. I thought about Claire's last words, about the promise she'd made Ethan swear to keep. She'd believed I was brave enough to handle the truth. Maybe she'd also believed I was brave enough to fight for it. Okay, said. Let's do it. The next day passed in a haze of nervous energy and second thoughts. Every time I saw a police car, my heart rate spiked. Every time someone mentioned Detective Morrison's name in passing, and in a small town, people still talked about their beloved former police chief, I wanted to scream that they were praising a monster. At school, Ethan and I maintained the pretense of being casual acquaintances, but I was hyper-aware of his presence, of the way he seemed to be constantly scanning for threats, of the careful way he moved through the hallways like he was navigating a minefield. During lunch, my friend Sarah cornered me by my locker. Okay, what's going on with you and the mysterious new boy? She demanded. Nothing, I lied. We're just friends. Right. I'm secretly dating Ryan Gosling. She studied my face with the intensity of someone who'd known me since kindergarten. Lily, you look like you haven't slept in days. Are you okay? I'm fine. You're not fine. You're whatever the opposite of fine is. She grabbed my arm, her expression growing serious. Is this about Claire? Because, honey, I know her anniversary is coming up. And if you need to talk, I said I'm fine, I snapped. Then immediately felt guilty for taking my stress out on my best friend. Sorry, It's been a weird week. Promise me you'll be careful, Sarah said, her voice uncharacteristically gentle. I know I tease you about your tendency to read too many murder mysteries, but real life isn't a book, Lily. Real life has consequences, and if only she knew how real my life had become. Morrison's old house sat on the edge of town, a modest colonial that had once been his pride and joy. Now it was surrounded by police tape and bathed in the harsh glare of temporary floodlights. A single patrol car sat in the driveway, its occupant visible through the windshield. scrolling through his phone. Ethan and I watched from the tree line behind the house, our breath creating small clouds in the cold October air. We'd been waiting for over an hour, and my nerves were frayed to the breaking point. "There," Ethan whispered as the patrol car's engine started. "He's making his rounds. We have maybe 20 minutes before he comes back." The basement entrance was around the back of the house, accessed through old-fashioned cellar doors that looked like they belonged in a horror movie. Ethan made quick work of the police tape, careful to preserve it so we could replace it when we left home. The basement was a maze of renovation debris and police equipment, but the hidden room was obvious once you knew what to look for. A section of newer drywall that didn't match the rest of the basement, with a door concealed behind a false panel. "Jesus," I breathed when we stepped inside. The room was a shrine to Morrison's crimes. The walls were covered with photographs, surveillance shots of young women, intimate photos taken without consent, and worse, much worse, there were personal belongings arranged on shelves like trophies, jewelry, driver's licenses, even locks of hair. And there, on a shelf by itself, was Claire's homecoming crown from senior year, the one she'd been wearing the night she disappeared. "He kept pieces of them," I whispered, my voice thick with revulsion, "like souvenirs." Ethan was photographing everything with his phone, his jaw tight with controlled rage. "We need to document all of this before the police." "Before the police what?" We spun around to find a figure silhouetted in the doorway, and my blood turned to ice when I recognized the voice. Jake Morrison stepped into the room. No longer the golden boy I remembered from high school. 5 years had changed him, hardened him, given him the cold eyes of a predator who'd learned to enjoy the hunt. Well, he said, his voice carrying the same casual menace I'd heard in nightmares. "Ethan Cross, I thought we killed you 5 years ago." "You tried," Ethan replied, positioning himself between Jake and me. "But you were always sloppy, Jake. Just like your father." My father was a visionary. He understood that some people are meant to be predators, and others are meant to be prey. Jake's eyes found mine, and his smile was pure malice. "Hello, Lily. You've grown up to be quite beautiful. Claire would be proud." "Don't you dare say her name," I snarled, surprising myself with the venom in my voice. "Oh, but I knew Claire so well. We spent quality time together before she died. She told me all sorts of interesting things about her baby sister." Ethan tensed beside me. "That's enough. Is it? Because from where I'm standing, this looks like breaking and entering. Crime that carries serious jail time, unless, of course, we can come to some sort of arrangement." "What kind of arrangement?" Jake's smile widened. "The same arrangement we offered Claire. Cooperation in exchange for safety. Of course, she chose the hard way, and I hope Lily here is smarter than her sister." "Go to hell," I said. "Already been there, sweetheart. Turns out I like it." He pulled a gun from his jacket, the same casual motion someone might use to check their watch. "Now, here's what's going to happen. You're going to give me that phone with all those photos, and then we're going to take a little drive. I have some friends who are very eager to meet Claire's little sister." The words hit me like ice water. He wasn't just going to kill us. He was going to continue his father's business, and I was going to be his next victim. "Over my dead body," Ethan said. "That can be arranged." Jake raised the gun, pointing it directly at Ethan's chest. "But first, the phone." "No. No." Jake's eyebrows rose in mock surprise. "Ethan, I don't think you understand the situation here. I'm the one with the gun. I'm the one making the demands. One who's been recording this entire conversation." Jake's confidence faltered slightly. "What?" Ethan held up his phone, showing a live video feed. "Smile. Jake, you're being broadcast to 3 different law enforcement agencies and one very determined private investigator who's been waiting 5 years for this moment. You're bluffing. Try me." The standoff stretched between them, tension crackling in the air like electricity. I could see Jake's mind working, calculating odds, trying to figure out if Ethan was telling the truth. Then, from somewhere in the house above us, came the sound of footsteps. Heavy boots on wooden floors, moving with purpose. "FBI, this is Agent Williams. The house is surrounded." Jake's face went white. "This is impossible. No one knew I was coming here." "Someone did," Ethan said quietly. "Someone's been watching you for months, waiting for you to make a mistake, waiting for you to add us to your father's evidence. You set me up. We gave you enough rope to hang yourself, just like you and your father did to Claire and all those other girls." The footsteps were getting closer, and I could hear voices calling out coordinates, securing the perimeter. Jake's hand was shaking now, the gun wavering between Ethan and me. "This isn't over," he said, his voice desperate. "My father has friends, connections. You'll never be safe. Your father's already in custody," Agent Williams's voice called from the basement stairs. "Arrested 3 hours ago at his home in Tampa. It's over. Jake." Put down the weapon. For a moment that lasted forever, Jake Morrison stood frozen in indecision. Then, with a snarl of rage, he raised the gun toward me. He never got the chance to fire. Ethan moved faster than I thought possible, tackling Jake around the waist and sending them both crashing into the wall of photographs. The gun went off, the bullet embedding itself harmlessly in the ceiling. And then FBI agents were pouring into the room, shouting orders, securing the scene. It was over. 5 years after my sister's murder, justice had finally come to Millbrook. The next few hours passed in a blur of statements, evidence collection, and media chaos. News vans descended on our quiet town like vultures, and suddenly everyone wanted to know about the corruption that had been festering in the heart of our police department. I found myself sitting in an FBI field office, wrapped in a blanket and nursing a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. Ethan sat beside me, a bandage covering a cut on his forehead from his fight with Jake, his hand warm and steady in mine. "How long have you been working with the FBI?" I asked, when we finally had a moment alone. "About a year," he admitted. "After I turned 18 and aged out of the system, I contacted the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, told them what I knew about Morrison and Jake. It took months to convince them I wasn't just some traumatized kid making things up, but eventually they connected me with Agent Williams." "So all of this was planned? You're coming to Millbrook, enrolling in school, meeting me?" "Not meeting you specifically," he said, squeezing my fingers. "But yes, we knew that eventually Jake would return to tie up loose ends. and we knew that Claire's family might be a target. You were protecting me. I was trying to, but also, I needed to keep the promise I made to your sister. She deserved to have her story told, to have people know what really happened to her. Agent Williams approached our table, her expression grave but satisfied. We found everything, she said. Morrison kept detailed records of every girl they trafficked, every buyer, every transaction. We're looking at a network that spans multiple states and involves dozens of perpetrators. How many girls? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. 47 confirmed victims over 8 years. Claire was number 32. The number hit me like a physical blow. 47 families who'd lost daughters, sisters, friends. 47 young women whose lives had been cut short by monsters wearing badges and hiding behind authority. But it's over now, Agent Williams continued. Morrison and Jake are both in custody, and we have enough evidence to prosecute everyone involved in their network. Your sister's case will finally have closure. Closure. The word felt strange in my mouth. 5 years of questions. It was hard to believe we finally had answers. What happens now? I asked. Now you go home, the agent said gently. You mourn your sister properly, and you try to heal. Justice doesn't bring back the dead, but it can help the living find peace. Claire's second funeral was held on a bright November morning, 3 weeks after Jake Morrison's arrest. This time, we knew where she was, knew what had happened to her, knew that the men who'd killed her would spend the rest of their lives in prison. The entire town turned out, along with families of Morrison's other victims and FBI agents who'd worked the case. During the service, I spoke about my sister again, not as a victim this time, but as a hero who died trying to protect other girls from the same fate. Claire didn't die because she was in the wrong place at the wrong time, I said, looking out at the packed church. She died because she was brave enough to stand up to evil, even when it cost her everything. She died because she cared more about protecting others than protecting herself. After the service, as they lowered her casket into the ground for the second time, Ethan stepped forward. With shaking hands, he placed something on the casket, not the locket this time, but a single white rose. For the bravest person I ever knew, he said quietly. The trials dominated the news for months. Morrison and Jake were both convicted on multiple counts of murder, trafficking, and conspiracy. They received life sentences without the possibility of parole, as did 8 other members of their network. During his sentencing hearing, Morrison finally spoke about his crimes, not to show remorse. Men like him don't feel remorse, but to boast about how clever he'd been, how he'd fooled an entire town for years. You people have no idea how easy it was, he said, smirking at the packed courtroom. Hide behind a badge, make the right donations to local politicians, help a few old ladies with their groceries, and suddenly you're above suspicion. Could have kept going forever, if not for that meddling girl. He meant Claire, of course, even in his final moments of freedom. Detective Morrison couldn't resist one last insult to my sister's memory. I was glad when they led him away in shackles. Some people don't deserve forgiveness, no matter how much healing it might bring to the people they've hurt. Ethan graduated from Millbrook High that spring, valedictorian of a class that included only 12 other students. His speech was about the power of truth, about how secrets can poison a community, and about the importance of speaking up for those who can no longer speak for themselves. I was proud of him, but also terrified. Graduation meant he'd be leaving for college, starting a new life away from Millbrook and away from me. We'd grown close over the months since Morrison's arrest, bonded by shared trauma and a love for the sister who'd brought us together, but I wasn't sure what we were to each other beyond that. "I got into Harvard," he told me after the ceremony, his graduation cap tilted at an awkward angle. "Full scholarship, pre-law, with a focus on victims' rights advocacy." "That's amazing," I said, forcing a smile despite the ache in my chest. Claire would be so proud. She would be proud of both of us. "You're going to do incredible things with your life, Lily." "Are you saying goodbye?" He was quiet for a long moment, studying my face in the afternoon sunlight. "Do you want me to?" "No," I said honestly, "but I don't want to hold you back either. You have a chance at a real life now, away from all of this darkness. You're not darkness, Lily. You're light. You're hope. You're everything good that came out of something terrible. I'm also 17 and still in high school. And I'm 18 and about to start college. So it's not ideal timing, but..." Closer, his green eyes intense. "I waited 5 years to find you. I think I can wait 2 more for you to graduate." "You'd wait for me?" "I'd wait forever if I had to. Claire made me promise to take care of you, and I intend to keep that promise for the rest of my life." "Is that the only reason?" "No," he said, reaching up to touch my face with gentle fingers. "I'm in love with you, Lily, not because you're Claire's sister, but because you're you. Because you're brave and fierce and kind, and because you see the best in people even after witnessing the worst." "I love you too," I whispered, the words feeling both terrifying and inevitable. "Then we'll figure it out. Long distance, video calls, weekend visits when I can afford the gas money. Whatever it takes. Promise?" "I promise." He kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of hope for a future neither of us had thought possible, around us. Families celebrated graduation and new beginnings, and for the first time in 5 years, I felt like I might be part of that hope instead of forever trapped in the darkness of the past. As I write this, it's been 3 years since Detective Morrison's arrest. 3 years since my sister's real killer was brought to justice. 3 years since I learned that sometimes the monsters we fear are hiding in plain sight, protected by badges and authority, and the trust of good people who can't imagine such evil exists. Ethan kept his promise. He's in his junior year at Harvard now, top of his class, and already being recruited by major law firms that specialize in victims' rights. We video chat every night, and he drives up to Millbrook whenever he can afford the gas money. Next year, when I graduate, I'll be joining him in Boston. I've been accepted to Emerson College with a scholarship for investigative journalism. There are other Detective Morrisons out there, other predators hiding behind authority. Someone needs to be watching for them. Someone needs to be telling their victims' stories. Claire died trying to expose the truth about trafficking in small-town America. The least I can do is continue her work. My mother remarried last year, a kind librarian from the next town over who makes her laugh and doesn't flinch when she talks about Claire. My father moved back from Portland after Morrison's trial, finally able to face the place where he'd lost his daughter. We're still rebuilding our relationship, but we're trying. Our family is different now. Scarred, but stronger. We've learned that love doesn't end with death, that sometimes the people we lose continue to guide us long after they're gone. I visit Claire's grave every month, bringing flowers and updates about my life. Sometimes I tell her about Ethan, about how he still wears a small photo of her in his wallet, alongside one of me. Sometimes I talk about my plans for college, about the stories I want to tell, about the girls I hope to help. But mostly, I just sit quietly and remember the sister who loved me enough to die protecting others, who saw something in a lonely foster kid that would eventually save my life, who believed I was brave enough to handle the truth, even when I didn't believe it myself. The locket that started this whole journey sits in a place of honor on my dresser now, returned to me after the trial. Inside, alongside our grandmother's photo, I've placed a new picture, one of Claire and Ethan together from that summer at the group home, both of them young and hopeful and unaware of the tragedy that would tear them apart. Sometimes I catch myself staring at that photo, wondering what would have happened if Morrison had never set his sights on my sister. Would Claire and Ethan have found their way back to each other? Would they have had the love story they deserved? But then I remember what Claire used to tell me when I was small and afraid of the dark. Don't waste time wishing for different circumstances. Lily, make the best of the ones you've got. She was right. As she was about so many things. We can't change the past, but we can honor it. We can make sure the people we've lost aren't forgotten, that their deaths have meaning, that their love continues to make a difference in the world. Claire wanted me to be brave. She wanted me to fight for justice, to never let anyone convince me to be smaller than I am. And she wanted me to find love, even in the darkest of circumstances. I've done all three, and I plan to keep doing them for the rest of my life. Because love doesn't end with death. Justice doesn't have an expiration date. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, the worst thing that ever happens to you can also lead to the best. That's the lesson my sister taught me, written in silver and sealed with a promise that transcended the grave. It's a lesson I'll never forget. But there's one more thing, one final secret that I've only recently discovered and am still trying to process. Last month, while helping my mother clean out the attic, I found a box hidden behind the insulation, a box with Claire's name written on it in our father's handwriting. Inside were items I'd never seen before, journal entries, letters, and a manila envelope marked, "For Lily. Open only if something happens to me." The envelope contained a letter that shattered everything I thought I knew about my sister's final weeks. "Dearest Lily," it began, "if you're reading this, then my worst fears have come true, and the people who want to hurt me have succeeded. I need you to know that everything I told you the night before I disappeared was true. But it wasn't the whole truth. I've been working with someone for months. I was documenting Morrison's crimes, gathering evidence to bring him down. Someone who lost a sister to his trafficking ring 3 years ago and has been hunting him ever since. Her name is Sarah Chen, and she's a private investigator from Seattle. We were so close to having enough evidence to expose everything, but Morrison figured out what we were doing, and now they're coming for me. And if something happens, Sarah has copies of everything. Find her. Lily. She's the key to bringing them all down. And Lily? Don't trust anyone in law enforcement in this town. The corruption goes deeper than just Morrison. Be careful who you turn to for help. I love you more than words can say. Be brave. Little sister, the world needs your light. Claire. Attached to the letter was a business card for Sarah Chen, private investigator, along with a phone number and an address in Seattle. The same Seattle where Marcus Webb, the investigator who'd helped Ethan, was based. The same Seattle where, according to news reports, Sarah Chen had been found dead in her apartment just 2 weeks after Claire's disappearance. Her death ruled a suicide despite her family's insistence that she would never take her own life. My hands shook as I dialed Ethan's number, my mind racing with the implications. Claire hadn't just stumbled across Morrison's crimes by accident. She'd been actively investigating them, and the private investigator she'd been working with had been murdered too. Lily? Ethan's voice was concerned when he answered. What's wrong? Ethan, I said, my voice barely steady. I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. Marcus Webb, the investigator who helped you, did he ever mention working with a partner who'd been killed? There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Ethan finally spoke, his voice was heavy with a sadness I'd heard before. Sarah Chen was Marcus's daughter, he said quietly. She'd been hunting Morrison for 3 years before she found your sister. And yes, she was murdered for getting too close to the truth. Why didn't you tell me? Because Marcus made me promise not to. He said you'd been through enough trauma that knowing Sarah had been killed too would only hurt you more. But don't you see what this means? I said, excitement and fear warring in my chest. Claire wasn't just a random victim. She was a partner in bringing Morrison down. She died as a hero, not just as someone who got in the way. I know, Ethan said, and I think Claire would want you to know the whole truth now. She'd want you to know that she died fighting, not just for herself, but for all the girls Morrison had taken. As I hung up the phone, I felt something shift inside me. The grief was still there, the anger at the injustice of losing my sister so young. But there was something else too. Pride, fierce, overwhelming pride in the woman Claire had become, in the courage she'd shown, in the choice she'd made to risk everything for the sake of others. My sister hadn't just been beautiful and kind and loved. She'd been a warrior, and warriors don't die in vain. They die fighting battles that matter, battles that make the world safer for the people they leave behind. Claire had fought that battle, and through her sacrifice, 47 families finally had answers. 47 girls could rest in peace, knowing their deaths hadn't been forgotten. It still wasn't enough. It would never be enough to balance the scales of what had been taken from us. But it was something. It was hope. And sometimes, hope is all we need to keep fighting. The locket sits on my dresser still, catching the morning light as I write these final words. Inside, Claire's picture smiles back at me, not the victim I'd mourned for 5 years, but the hero she'd always been. I kept my promise. Claire, I whisper to her image. I was brave. I found the truth, and I found love, and I swear. Sometimes in the quiet moments between day and night, I can hear her voice on the wind. I'm proud of you, little sister. Now go change the world. So that's exactly what I plan to do.